Hi, folks. Welcome back. We're going to see if we can talk a little bit about Chapter 2 from the book that is associated with this class. As you recall, Chapter 1 was sort of about the idea of discussing how businesses need to be thought of as a system and how businesses, no matter how well they're designed, sometimes things change. Things change pretty often. Obviously, right now, we've completely changed up the entire semester of how we're actually getting through this course. And businesses need to be agile, is the word. Businesses need to be sort of thinking on their feet of how they can go ahead and respond to all different types of changes. So we looked at how different things change. We looked at 5 different ways. Again, the author likes to have a list of what things to cover, and we looked at 5 different ways that those things can change how businesses do their business, change of game and the like. But this time we're going to be talking about systems themselves, sort of the idea of systems thinking. So let me push a button here. So we're in Chapter 2. It's titled Systems Principles. And again, this is the book we're talking about, written by Professor Garrett Adaji. Again, he's in his 80s now, so he's retired, but he worked for the Institute of Interactive Management. He had his own business, but for a while he worked and taught at the Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania, and that's where he developed a lot of the concepts along with his mentor, Professor Russell Ackoff. Just to drop some names, at the University of Pennsylvania, Wharton School of Business. And then soon after writing this book in 2000, Professor Garrett Adaji actually moved over to Villanova. So he's a Philadelphia person, and he taught at Villanova for a while. But like I mentioned before, now he's in his early 80s, so he's retired. Here's a picture of the book again. This is the third edition. So whatever it happens to be, this is where we left off in the first chapter. We were talking about having a business sort of change its paradigm 2 different ways. And again, I know that's a big business word, paradigm. One was to think about the parts, and that's analytical thinking. And the other is to think about the whole, or what you make with the parts, that's system thinking. And then we looked at 3 different ways to think about how a business can be sort of designed. We could think of the business just being a big old set of robots, and every item in the machine, if you will, does its job. And we saw that Henry Ford sort of capitalized on that when he made the assembly line, but he used people as machines, or people as parts. It's just that he didn't have the technology back in the turn of the last century, in the 1900s. So he had to use people, and now it's over 100 years later, about almost exactly 100 years later, 2020. He was still producing the Model T in 1920. And now of course, we have real robots to do real robot jobs. So in the 100 years since then, we've progressed from just considering businesses to be a giant machine to, hey, what if we know we have humans, what if some of the humans can sort of steer the ship, or what if some of the humans can be bought or hired as brought in, is what I was trying to say, brought in as the sort of the brains of the outfit. And of course, we call that management. And there's lower management, middle management, upper management. Then you have the workers. It's very similar to how the military is set up, where we have officers who sort of the brains of the situation, and then we have the enlisted. And again, that's not slamming the enlisted. The enlisted are people, and they have brains, but they have to follow orders, and they're told what to do, and they sort of execute the orders that the officers decide. But then there's this third way, and that is, what if all of the humans, no matter where they are employed, somebody needs to be a security guard, someone needs to watch the front door, if it's not completely automated. Somebody needs to sweep the floors and pick up the trash. However, because if that happens to be done by a human and not some iRobot Roomba running around, that human can definitely find better ways to do their job. Maybe the better way is to to hire a robot or develop a robot to do some of the menial tasks. But the idea is, as we progress, 100 years after Ford, what if humans at all levels were asked to use their brains? So this rather, because all of the humans can now sort of imagine how things change, we can lead rather than follow. Before the previous model, the idea was that the managers would predict and prepare, sort of like when we were playing the beer distribution game. We had to sort of guess what the orders would be for the next 2 weeks or the next couple weeks, and we had to predict whether it was going to be a lot of orders coming in or not a lot of orders coming in. Mentioning the beer game, just an aside, when I'm recording this in April of 2020, we are in the middle of COVID and the COVID response, and people are working from home and people are back home and not at the university, as you know, and not many people are driving. We still have, thankfully, a lot of truck drivers that are getting materials and Amazon orders around, but the roads are not flooded with people driving cars, and right now the demand for oil and gasoline is just completely gone to the floor. Sort of like when we were playing the beer game. All of a sudden, if someone didn't buy the beer that you had, then you would stop ordering. So that's what's happening right now. The refineries that normally buy crude oil by the barrel and then refine it and then sell it out the front door as different versions of fossil fuels, whether it's kerosene or jet fuel or gasoline. There's no demand right now because we're just not driving and we're just not flying and we're not taking cruise ships. So there's no demand for oil right now, and I guess this past week the price for a barrel of oil dropped to not only dropped down to zero because no one could use it, and they're completely full up. There's no more room in their inventory for any more oil, and they're not refining it. People who were drilling for oil, actually the price per barrel of oil actually went negative. Companies were paying people to take the oil off their hands because there's no place to stick it. It's sort of an amazing thing talking about change. That will change pretty soon, but at least once we get the economy restarted, perhaps this summer, perhaps early this summer, maybe Memorial Day, we're going to have some pretty cheap gas running around. But anyway, as an aside, so we have to lead rather than follow, and that requires that all of the people who are no longer robots, who are asked to do their job, they have to follow these big 3 things in red down here. The stakeholders must learn how to use what they already know. So rather than being told and commanded like a robot, do your job, do this, they're supposed to know that by themselves. They need to figure out what they don't know, like, hey, here's a problem to be solved, I should think about that, and then they have to learn what they need to know. So this idea of a knowledge economy, or constantly learning. So this is sort of where we're stepping off of chapter 1. How do we talk about systems where we have people, where we have people who are expected to use their brains all the time as employees? And that's what we're going to walk into right now. Again, the author just happens to pick a couple, and we're going to use the number 5 again. And so we're talking about purposeful, multi-minded systems, where this came from. This is what a systems side, and where this comes from. The employees have a purpose going to work. They want to do a better job, obviously. We're going to be talking about a concept called openness, a concept called purposefulness, and of course these are all English words, so we all know what these mean in English, but we're going to put them closer into what they actually mean inside of systems context. Push a button here. Multi-dimensionality, which is not too terrible. We'll talk about that. An emergent property. An emergent property is definitely something that we don't typically talk about unless we're talking about systems. And then finally, counterintuitiveness. So we're going to be walking through all 5 of these things as we look through chapter 2.